As we all know, India and UK are both members of G20 and are actively engaged in promoting sustainable ocean governance throughout through the G20 platform. So India's G20 presidency also makes matters more vibrant and significant. In the G20's efforts to advance sustainable ocean governance, India and UK can play significant roles. Their cooperation and leadership in this area actually can contribute to ensuring the long-term health and productivity of oceans around the world. So both India and UK have made a point of highlighting the value of international cooperation and solving issues linked to the oceans, like overfishing, plastic pollution, and the effects of climate change on the oceans as part of their efforts in the G20. So in this context, I'm sure that the conversation will lead to innovative ideas in the blue economy, sustainable growth by mitigating effects of climate change and ocean governance. So I would like to introduce the chair of the session, Ms. Anisree Suresh. She's an associate for research and climate management at Center for Public Policy Research. She completed her bachelor's in political science and her master's in international studies from the School of International and Area Studies, Goa University. I welcome Ms. Anisree to the dais. I would also like to welcome the panelist of the session, Professor V N Attri. He is a director, International Center for Indo-Pacific Studies, Kurukshetra University at Haryana. Commander Abhimanyu Rathore. He is a judge advocate, Naval Operations, Ministry of Defense. He is presently handling matters pertaining to operational aspects of international maritime law from a naval state standpoint. And Dr. P Pradhan. He is a distinguished fellow with CPPR and also works as an assistant professor at the Department of Humanities and Social Sciences at BITS Pilani, Goa campus. I welcome you all to the session. With that, I would like to hand over the proceedings to Ms. Anisree. Kindly take over, Anisree.
As we are halfway through our deliberations and in-depth discussions on geopolitical questions, the Indo-Pacific tilt in the UK strategies to the region, and the non-traditional security threats, as we are continuing the discussion, now we will be looking into the question of multilateral institutions such as G20 in the sustainable ocean governance and the strategic role of UK-India partnership in this regard. On the esteemed panel, we have Professor V N Attri, a non-name in the blue economy domain, Dr. P Pradhan, who is also a maritime studies and blue economy expert, and Commander Abhimanyu Rathore, who is an international maritime law expert. I welcome all of you to this crucial and timely deliberation on multilateralism and sustainable marine ecosystem. So the primary goal of this session is to pave the plausible path to a healthy ocean for all by identifying the areas of cooperation for all the ocean economies for all stakeholders involved here. So in line with this, I would like to start the session by posing my first question to you, Professor Attri. So ocean economy plays a huge role in our global economy. So we are looking at a region where 60 million people are employed in the seafood industries, 80% of global fish production, 80% of global maritime trade, and 17 of the world's 20 largest ports all form under the Asia-Pacific region. And on the other hand, we have blue economy as an economic model that's gaining traction tremendously. So what are the top priorities or sectors for India and UK with respect to their blue economy strategy in the Indo-Pacific region?
Thank you very much. First of all, let me thank the CPPR and the Government of UK for inviting me to this timely session. And at the beginning, let me say that the scope for India-UK cooperation and collaboration, and the title is G20, is very strategic, timely, and path-making in the future. Why I say so? Because if you see the latest statements made by the Prime Minister of UK, he has given full support to G20 to India's presidency. So this is a very big thing. And the second thing is, he has also made a statement that they support fully India's permanent seat in the Security Council. So, and then the third thing is that they are also willing to collaborate in other areas. So these are 2 or 3 recent developments which are very vital, you see. If you see the present contemporary situations, and the war scenario is there, and we have been listening to the security angles. And another important contribution of UK is that Indo-Pacific Ocean Initiative, which is the baby of Indian government. So there is the first pillar, maritime security. So UK has contributed to that also. UK is the partner in that. So UK is already there in the Indo-Pacific, though the intentions are made clear very late, but that doesn't matter. Another important thing which is there, you mentioned the healthy ocean. So healthy ocean is very dear to the World Bank. You see, every breath we take, it is because of ocean. Ocean economy should be known to everybody, everywhere. That was the target of the latest ocean conference in Portugal. But I lament that the students and the governments and the universities, they are not so much curious about the blue economy. Now, please forgive me, because let me give a brief introduction how I got motivated into the blue economy. So I will be briefly touching that, and then I will be telling what is the strategy for India and the UK to contribute significantly to the blue economy. And Indo-Pacific target is to create a resilient, sustainable Indo-Pacific region. So that is Indo-Pacific framework, economic framework, I will speak on that also, is focusing on that, you see, sustainable development. There were questions regarding the sustainable development goals and all that. And I have the occasion to attend the latest conference in the United Nations in US on the open science as well as the citizen science as well as the partnership forum in the United Nations, and I will be sharing those issues when the question will be asked. So basically, I joined as Chair Indian Ocean Studies in IORA in November 2014. It was the appointment made by Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India, and Ministry of Foreign Trade, Republic of Mauritius. And I joined as the CIOS after a gap of 15 years in the Republic of Mauritius in the IORA Secretariat. So it was starting from the scratch. Then, very soon the opportunity came in May 2015. There was the first core group meeting in blue economy in Durban, and I was asked to speak on the blue economy. And I try to start to define the blue economy, and I share my experiences that half of the delegates, they said, what professor is talking? Defining a blue economy? Nonsense. But half of the delegates, they liked the idea, and later on in 2016, when I gave the keynote address in University of Mauritius, no one left behind, which is the target goal of United Nations now. So later on, whether it is the World Bank, whether it is the WEF, whether it is the individual, professors, individual institutions, multinationals, everybody is talking about the blue economy. So that is the story. Now, the major issues in blue economy, I'm just touching and going hurriedly, you see. Basically, in 1994, Guntar Pali, who can be called, you see, the originator of the blue economy, but that started with Jerry. You see, that is the basically Zero Emission Research Initiative. And in 2010, April, he published a book that is basically Blue Economy, 100 million jobs, 10 years, 100 innovations, something like that. So that basically paved the ground for blue economy. But I know the people like Professor Colgan in US who have been working on the blue economy or the ocean economy since 1990s. Now, there has been a confusion for a long time, what is the ocean economy, what is the blue economy? And when IORA basically adopted the blue economy as a new economic paradigm in October 2014, thereafter I was asked by the member state, Professor, should we call it ocean economy or blue economy? And the Mauritian government wanted to call it ocean economy. But I told them that the ocean economy is unsustainable, maybe unsustainable, And if you want to integrate the environmental angle and the sustainability angle, then we must call it a blue economy. So then, ultimately, all the member states accepted the idea, and it is the blue economy. And then later on, in Nairobi in 2018, it became the sustainable blue economy, bringing into the rivers and lakes also into the analysis. So that is a long history, basically. And then IORA's commitment to blue economy is well known. And there were three ministerial. One was in 2015, then the second was in Jakarta in 2017, and the third was in Bangladesh in 2019. And 14th Blue Economy Ministerial was to be held in between. I completed my tenure and came back to India in December 2020. So now basically I tell you that we prepared a book, that is the first book on blue economy, which is available on Amazon. That is the Indian Handbook of Blue Economy of the Indian Ocean region. So that was the first book and gives an idea. And I know that I contacted some of my friends because in IORA it was the responsibility that each member states contribute. And I have to persuade the scientists that you write a chapter and this is how you write a chapter. And now you see basically then in Vyomsa, that was in 2019, I addressed the gathering of, you see, more than 700 scientists, and that was on the paradigm of blue economy. So, and as the moderator has raised a very good question, there is a feeling in my mind that how or in what way these multilateral or regional economic grouping can contribute to the blue economy. Here, I can cite the example of Organization of Eastern Caribbean Countries, who basically act as a market like EU, and the greatest help or financial assistance to the blue economy by the World Bank is given by the Organization of Eastern Caribbean Countries. That basically, I attended one conference organized by World Bank and Brazilian government in 2018 in Brazil. And then in India, when I was the chair of Indian Ocean Studies, the Prime Minister Economic Advisory Council in 2017 invited me, and there basically I expressed my views, and there were 7 volumes of the Blue Economy report. Then this report was synthesized, and there is the Blue Economy Strategy, which is released by the Earth Ministry of the Government of India. So the point here is that India has been a bit late starter in the blue economy, but I remember, and I was there in that gathering where the Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi went to Mauritius in March, that is 12th March 2015, and spoke about, not in that meeting, but elsewhere, the Sagar and Sagarmala. So that basically, and then he went to Seychelles and Sri Lanka, and then to some of the countries of South Africa. So that is how basically India became a very key player. Now, I can go on speaking my experiences, but that is not the issue. I must focus on the Indo-Pacific, and the timely topic is how India and UK can contribute to the Indo-Pacific. And in that context, I have been searching what is happening latest, and there I'm happy. One thing, there was a ocean conference in Panama that was on 2nd March 2023, and I was also invited, but I couldn't go because I was in travel mode, came from US to India. In that conference, UK government contributed 24 million pound for the coral reef conservation. Mangrove, coral reef and all that, this is very much crucial, what we call clean ocean, clean economy, or healthy ocean. Because healthy and productive ocean is the key for harnessing the ocean, you see. Now the goal is that how we can sustainably use the oceanic resources. And the World Bank definition, which is basically universally acceptable, what is the blue economy? Or what is the ocean economy? although both are the same, because some country use ocean economy. For example, US call it ocean economy, China also call it US ocean economy, some of the European country call it ocean economy. But what is important, that environment and sustainability is there, and that is what is the ocean economy. We need to minimize the unsustainable use of resources. And the ocean energy is very important. So I was referring the mangrove and the coral reef, you see. So that fund is there. And moreover, you see, UK has created a 500 million pound fund for Blue Planet that is devoted to the blue economy. So in that context, you see, I am sure that in April there is a conference in UK, and that is on the ocean business and you see ocean technology. So ocean technology is a great field where basically India can be benefited from UK, because UK is very much advanced as far as the ocean technology is concerned, ocean business is concerned, how to use the sustainable resources. And I remember I was there in UAE, attended the first sustainability conference that was in 2016, nominated by the Secretary General. And there I met a person who was basically from UK, and there is a sustainability fund in UK which has, you see, $1 trillion available with them. But how to use that is basically is through collaborations. So, and apart from that, basically science and technology, then artificial intelligence, that is the another important area, accelerated technological change. There was a conference in Mexico. I was invited by the United Nations, and I was among the 40 experts who was invited all over the world. And there basically we had a very huge, detailed meeting about the accelerated technological change and what it can do. So the technology basically, it can be a plus point, it can be a negative point, but by and large, technology is making the ocean economy, what we can say, being harnessed properly. Because oceans are vital since the centuries. What is new now, that this accelerated technological change. I remember Intel basically said that there is a continuity of technological innovations till 2030, which was not there earlier in the economic growth model of economics. You see, we consider technology as a exogenous factor, but technology now is a endogenous factor. And in future, only those countries will accelerate who has a technological superiority. So technological gap is also there. So in that context, and the other area basically is that the focus on sustainable development goal. So I am just completing the book on IORA and the sustainable development goal. In that book, basically, I have analyzed the performance of almost more than 70 countries in the different economic groupings in terms of their, what we call the divergence index as well as the convergence index. And I am happy to share with you that the UK convergence index in whole of the sustainable development goal is about 83% out of 100, whereas India's sustainable development convergence index is around 47%. So when we see these two convergence goal, because I strongly believe data explains everything. Data basically tells you what policies have been adopted in the past, whether they are successful or they are not successful at all. So that basically is there in the data. And the World Bank report of 2021 basically says that data is everything. But there are serious data gaps prevalent in reporting this sustainable development goal. I won't go into the detail of that. I leave it for question hour. So that is, I think, in brief, explains where, for example, there is the pillar 3, which we call clean economy. So in clean economy, where we include the blue economy also, and one of the objective of our center, which we established after coming from Mauritius, I met the Vice Chancellor of Kurukshetra University, made a proposal that I want to set up an international center for Indo-Pacific studies. So that center was established in June 2022, and we hosted an international conference in September 2nd and 3rd, 2022. It was a great success. It was attended by delegates from 13 countries, online and in present, personally also. And then we submitted the recommendations. I think I submitted more than 30 recommendations to the Ministry of External Affairs to act upon. Although, the funding is the issue, but I'm sure that funding will be coming. So I think I stop with regard to this question. Now you can ask another question. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Dr. Pradhan, adding to the beautiful, insightful introduction Professor Attri had shared, what do you think are the sectors that need to be prioritized in terms of building a blue economy focus in the India-UK strategy in the Indo-Pacific? Also, now we are looking at the free trade agreement talks and the negotiation that picking up momentum to improve the trade and investment between UK and India. So how do you think it will be imperative for the blue economy development in the region?
Okay, thank you. Let me first of all thank CPPR and Government of UK for advancing this dialogue towards the understanding of blue economy scope and partnership. And G20 in particular is a festival in India today. I think every city in India is having G20. This is my third such participation in different cities in India. And G7 is a core group of G20. So we are not only multilateralism, regionalism, mini-regionalism, and we are in multiple forums and all that. Very interesting, I think. Let me take it from what Professor Attri talked about. Is that I come from Goa, and I'm teaching in a Science and Technology Institute, and all my students are engineers. So the first question that you teach them, they ask you, why should you study it? What do I get? And that's where I had a game with them. I have a data lab where I'm monitoring all the seaports of the world, who has online data. I think, it is, you will not get it, I'm sure. And Google, if you Google how many ports are there, you will get 4,000 some odd number of ports, but I'm mapping 8,000 ports. So how many vessels are there in London port today, or any vessel that comes to any port in the world, I get a data of it. So what I do with my engineering students is that I give them a group of countries' data and tell them that do whatever you want to do out of it. Fascinating results. They're good, brilliant guys. Fascinating results we get. And that's where I think the beauty of our times is that we are living in knowledge economy. And that's where I refer Geneva School of Economics, Professor Richard Baldwin. He captures this whole issue as the phenomena of knowledge economy or fourth industrial revolution. And what it has done today is that he says that technology has dismantled the boundaries, enabled North American capital and European capital to integrate with China, the labor force in China, Indonesia, India, Mexico, Brazil, Vietnam, ASEAN, and so on. And that's where we see a new world altogether. He says that at the cost of de-industrialization of the Americans and Europeans, there's a new rise, that's BRICS, that's ASEAN, that's India, China, Indonesia. So it's a different time frame altogether. And that's where when I look at India and Britain, particularly I will refer Harford John Mackinder. Harford John Mackinder was the director of London School of Economics. Very prophetic, I have quoted him enormously. And that's where he talks about the connectivity of the seas. And towards the end of Mackinder's life, when at 1943, he was already 83 years old man. And he was asked if at all he would like to revise his theoretical approach. And that's where he writes the last article of his life. It's called Round World and Winning a Peace. And very, very interesting theme he talks about. Earlier he had talked about the rise of China. First time at the age of 83, he writes that the monsoon lands of India and China, they will rise. The monsoon lands of India and China, and monsoon lands he refers to Tibet, from where the river system flows to China and India, nearly 11 prominent rivers, creating civilizations, economies, and growth. And then he says the monsoon lands of India and China, they will rise to power and eminence in the same year when Japan and Germany are tamed to civilization. That means 45, bombing and all that, they are calmed down. New powers are beginning to emerge. And then finally he says, with their civilizational value, 1,000 million people and their civilizational value order, they will then rebalance the world order. And the world will be, they will rebalance the remaining 1,000 people living between Missouri and Mississippi, the remaining 1,000 people. And that's where the world will be a better world. That's where I think we have come to the time frame, 21st century, knowledge economy, Richard Baldwin's convergence approach. And that's where we stand to reinvent, redefine, and reutilize the forces and resources that we have. And that's where ocean is appearing to be the most efficient or most potential theme today that can provide prosperity. That's why we must integrate. A small example I'll give, borrow from Professor Attri, what he talked about. Gunter Pauli, he's talking about that kind of experiment we are doing in our institute. He says that when we are having the cup of coffee, the coffee cup, what we get is that we pay whatever money we pay for the cup of coffee, but the amount of coffee that carries is only 2% of what the farmer produces. Only 2% comes to the coffee cup. The remaining 90%, 98% has vanished. What Gunter Pauli's experiment has been is to trace back those 98%, where are they vanishing? And some of the fabulous experimentations he has done is that he is going to the coffee shop, trying to take the roughage of it, trying to find out if at all it can be utilized somewhere. And they have experimented in Tanzania, in many of the African cities, with ladies self-help groups, and they're creating wonderful fertilizer out of it. And that's where reading Gunter Pauli is a necessity. The other side, what government is doing, blue economy, I think government is overriding. I think it is to be done. Everybody talks about blue economy. Let us partner with Japan, let us partner with Russia and London and all of that. And government is doing little overriding on that. The sustainability phenomenon that Gunter Pauli talks about is far too sustainable, far too efficient, local, friendly, in all dimensions. And that's where I think the government leadership of the blue economy and the scientific sustainability of the idea of blue economy, I think somewhere they have to be converged. I think we can carry the dialogue further.
Thank you, Doctor. Commander Rathore, so along with the opportunities we are discussing here and the wider opportunities the Indo-Pacific region offers, there are also a set of threats that pose significant challenges to the development of blue economy. So illegal, unreported, unregulated fishing is a major non-traditional security threat in the Indo-Pacific region. So could you please share your insights on the legal frameworks to address these concerns IUU poses?
Thank you, ma'am. Firstly, I would like to thank CPPR and British High Commission to give me the opportunity to come here. And I'm actually thankful for sharing the dais with such distinguished personalities like Professor Attri and Professor Pradhan, sir. With regard to IUU, I would say presently the legal framework already exists. In terms of domestic, in terms of Indian domestic setup, we have Maritime Zones of India 1981, and we have different states which have their own Maritime Regulation Zones Act, which are there to regulate the fishing both within India and beyond the EEZ also. In terms of UK, they have just enacted post-Brexit Fisheries Act of 2020 for regulating their vessels and for stopping EU vessels from fishing into the UK waters. In terms of international law, I would say there is UN Fish Stocks Agreement which is there, UNCLOS is there. Then we have those regional fisheries management organizations such as COFI and IOTC which is there. So I would say the legal setup is already existing. However, the problem which exists right now is the implementation. In this regard, there is a very good mechanism under COFA called as High Seas Boarding and Inspection Scheme, under which all the contracting parties, they agree for inspection by naval forces or implementing forces of any of the countries on board their vessels. And under that, a lot of IUU fishing is getting highlighted. A similar setup is being considered by IOTC, and if we want to stop IOTC within our waters and mostly Indian Ocean region, I think HSBI scheme is the way forward.
Thank you, Commander. Professor Attri, as the new paradigm of the blue economy is being widely utilized for sustainable fisheries, green shipping, and technology sharing for a sustainable ocean concept, so how do you think, building on to your earlier argument, how do you think the unilateral and multilateral mechanisms such as IORA and G20 can aid in ocean governance in the region and support a cooperative ecosystem for all regional actors and address these challenges as Commander had mentioned?
Well, that is basically a very nice question. In fact, the whole idea which I am working, and World Bank is appreciative of that idea, and the project which I completed just now about the Sustainable Development Goal, that was how or in what way these regional economic groupings can contribute. Now, the question which you are posing, that multilateralism, minilateralism, bilateralism, unilateralism. So, as a student of international economics, I taught international economics more than 40 years at Kurukshetra University. So, my suggestion is that multilateralism and regional economic groupings, that is a separate discipline. Can we mix it with the minilateralism? Certainly not. But to answer your question, one of the effective way to share our common goal, which is basically all over the world now, I can say with certainty, it is the inclusive growth, it is the sustainable development across the region, whether it is the Indo-Pacific, whether it is the Indian Ocean, whether it is the Atlantic Ocean, because ocean is basically one, as knowledge is basically one. So, rightly you are asking a question, so minilateral institutions, they can play a big role. And there basically is the relevance of Indo-Pacific, India-UK dialogue. So, minilateral materialism, it can be more than bilateral, it can be more than two, it can be three. Although there are instances, there is a development of three countries coming together, but two countries can also contribute. So, and then coming to IORA, coming to G7, coming to G20. For example, G20 in Jakarta last year made a statement that blue economy should come under G20, and there are 5 reasons why we should focus on G20, why G20 should focus on blue economy. And one of the issue is basically, which is important for the masses, that is, first is sustainable fisheries. Because if you view IORA, I can tell you in IORA, more than 80% of the blue economy consists of fisheries only. And the question of IUU has been very much prevalent in the IORA. And IORA is basically an organization which has 23 countries and 12 dialogue partners. UK is one of them, Germany is one of them. So together it is 23 plus 12, 35. And very recently, in November 2022, IORA has finalized its position on Indo-Pacific. And here, I can share with you the document, 64-page document, Indo-Pacific, IORA's position on Indo-Pacific. I prepared when South Africa was the chair, submitted it there, and it took almost more than 3 years to finalize this position. And this position of IORA is not well known to the people now because it is a secret document, but very soon I think they will be putting it on the website of IORA. So in that context, basically, the role of IORA, and in IORA, you see almost there are 4 or 5 members of IORA who are the member of G20. India is there, South Africa is there, Indonesia is there, Saudi Arabia is one of the dialogue partners, and if you include the dialogue partner, then I think more than 75% or 80% of the G20 belongs to IORA. So in that way, these are the things of coordination, you see. G7 also has its plan about blue economy. And I was a little worried about ASEAN. ASEAN basically explicitly never talked about the blue economy. They talk about the sustainability, sustainable development. But recently, they had a meeting on 2nd and 3rd February 2023, where basically they they pleaded that let us basically implement the blue economy as a new paradigm of economic growth. Whereas initially it has been, you see, basically accepted as a new paradigm of development in IORA. So basically, whether you talk about ASEAN, whether you talk about G7, whether you talk about IORA, whether you talk about EU has done a very magnificent work regarding the blue economy. So there is a definite and positive role for the multilateral and the minilateral and the bilateral, because if you go read the WTO, because trade is my area. So WTO latest report says that there is no conflict between multilateralism and regionalism, and there are papers by you see basically Professor Jagdish Bhagwati, who basically did a very good work, and then Johnson and a list of economists, that in some situation regionalism can put the world on a higher optimizing scale. But recently, the position is that multilateralism and you say regionalism are going together, and these are the different forms. And if you try to see basically what is there in RECAP, what is there in IORA, what is there in TTP, so basically this is the same group of country with the inclusion of China, without China. So that is taking place. The focus is on collaboration and cooperation. Why? Why that is happening, you see? Because financing of blue economy is a big issue. You don't have the funds. If you want to achieve the sustainable development goal by 2030, you need an investment of, say, $3.5 trillion to $5.5 trillion, estimates vary according to different reports, per year to reach that goal. But if you read all the Sustainable Development Goal reports of the United Nations from 2016 to 2022, in September there is a high-level public political forum meeting where they will be talking about how accelerating the Sustainable Development Goal. So I can tell you the research I have been doing for the last 2 years, no country in the world can achieve the Sustainable Development Goal by 2030. Although there is a possibility that some countries from Europe, and UK being one of them, maybe near to achieving that. So that is the another area which basically serves making the blue economy people-oriented. What is blue economy? Blue economy is, you see, basically empowering the local community, using the local raw material. I remember in 2019, I made a statement here in Kochi as Chair Indian Ocean Studies that there is no blue economy until or unless we look into the prosperity of the fishermen. And that basically applies to the 9 coastal states of India, which can boost the $5 trillion or more than $5 trillion dream of the Indian government. So these are some of the issues, you see, which are very much pertinent. And in global finance, the another area, which is very crucial area, I am very positive that this Indo-UK dialogue can pave the way for Indian government, you see, giving some money for the projects. And there was some questions in the morning in the session. I think at present, there are 258 projects in which United Kingdom is giving money to India. So the scope is enormous and it can increase over time. So I think I should stop here. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Dr. Pradhan, as Professor Attri has rightly mentioned, the lack of direct finance and support is identified as one of the major barriers to the growth of market solutions and innovations in the blue sectors. So especially for the small and medium enterprises. So how can the India-UK cooperation and the G20 platform be the facilitators in bridging the blue finance gaps?
Okay. Thank you, Anisree. I slightly deviate from Professor Attri's argument. I suppose there are multiple roads that can lead to a particular destination and many destinations at the same time too. When we look at, I'm in Goa, and then I was, since I'm a maritime scholar, teach a course also on that. I look for international collaborations, and then I have some collaboration with Bristol University. Bristol University, one of the sociologists, he had nothing to do with ocean, but he is deeply working on the ocean, and not only ocean, he is working on the Western Arabian Sea. They have a Safe Sea project, and it's a group of sociologists, scientists, and other people together. Some amount of theoretical development also they have contributed to, and Safe Sea, they have millions of pounds in their pocket. They get it from the European sources and all that. India is not that rich, so I couldn't be that rich, that way. But then it is, possible. Now, when I look at it, Britain, structurally, when I look at Britain, what is Britain? It is a construction of 6,000 islands. Indonesia, 17,000 islands. Japan, 6,000 islands. When I look at it, my east coast and west coast, we have series of islands, altogether 1,200 islands. I talk to Maldives, that's an island nation. I talk to Indonesia, that's an island nation. So I have different formats of interactions to happen, and that's where the larger narrative of blue economy, more focusing on fisheries, fishermen and all that, that suits to the political narrative. But I think the issue is far too larger. Issue is that when we started talking about Sagarmala project in India, we thought that we were doing a wonderful job. By the time we have started this work, suddenly people started talking about Sagarmala, but then it has to be a smart port. It has to be a green shipping. Then it has to be net zero compatible. So I wonder, 2015 or 2016 we started, and then by 2017, 18 or 19, we wonder whether it is Sagarmala or ideally it should be smart Sagarmala. So then hurriedly we had to adopt what we call India Maritime Vision 2030, where we incorporated some of the aspects of the smartness into the ocean dynamics, and that's where when I look at it, we have to, it is just not possible to play in a single system. I think we have to have many subsystems, and within that maybe G20 or any other forums or multiple forums, be the fisher folk coming together to find out integration formats, or bankers, or many other. In fact, the funding issue is one thing that I have been talking about. Now, we are a 7,500 kilometers of coastline country, 14,500 kilometers of inland waterways, and EEZ and all that. We do not have a single banking framework which will provide funding for the ocean-related activities. I think plenty of engineers are there, plenty of very high-tech people. They go abroad to do higher studies, come back and do fisheries. There's a new generation of people who are wanting to experiment in alternative modes. There are engineers, electrical engineers, electronics engineers, CS, computer science guys, wanting to come into the social field, and startups. And that's where I think UK has a very wonderful initiative. UK Hydrographic Office, Admiralty, they have started some innovation programs, marine innovation program, to help startups to also happen. And these are, mind you, we are operating in the knowledge system time frame where technology, the cutting, the ideas that should be, they are the value adding, elements, and that's where we have to, look at. The ports have to be smart, the shipping has to be green, the ocean space has to be, the transport mode, ocean transport mode has to be net zero compatible. Too many targets, too many issues. You need energy efficiency or many directions of such kind of things. So you need engineers, you need computer scientists, you need mathematicians. You need mathematicians to map the ocean space. We have the ability today, and that's where we have to integrate. The ocean space is not the fisheries alone. It is the Navy, it is the intelligence, it is the transport planners, it is urban, Los Angeles port and Los Angeles city. They have a smart port and smart city agreement with Shanghai port and Shanghai city. Chennai port has a smart port agreement with Vladivostok port in Russia. So dynamic things are happening all around. I think we have to create a blueprint for our own action and find out where the Japanese are doing well, find out where the British are doing well, how we can connect Mumbai to London, or we can multiple, I think there are multiple roads that lead to many. Thank you.
Thank you. Commander Rathore, so if you're looking at various challenges to the blue economy in the Indo-Pacific region, such as the overexploitation of the coral reef, the fisheries, the unmanned system, and the declaration of fishing moratoriums and the impact on the ocean economy. So how do our international legal system can address these challenges and manage our marine resources judiciously? So when nations leverage the oceans and their neighbors' oceans as well, so what are the legal checks and balances that are in place? And being a naval officer yourself, how do you think our naval forces can play a role in this regard?
So, ma'am, the question is divided into three parts. The first, I'll address the unmanned systems which is there. In terms of unmanned systems, there are two kinds of vessels which can be divided into it. The first is warships, which are unmanned warships, and the second is unmanned surface ships, which are used for commercial purposes. Coming down to the part of unmanned warships, right now the warships are governed by UNCLOS Article 29, which mandates 4 requirements for a warship to be called a warship. One is it should be belonging to an armed forces. Second is it should bear external marks. Third is it should be manned by a crew. And the fourth and most important one is it should be commanded by an officer which is duly commissioned. So in terms of an unmanned maritime systems, the first 2 requirements can be easily met. It can belong to an armed forces. It can bear an external mark with regard to it being a warship. But the last 2 requirements which are mentioned in Article 29, that is, it should be manned and it should be commanded by an officer. These 2 requirements, although right now do not have an agreement between the states whether this manning of warships could be through a remote means. So till the time that agreement does not happen, I don't think we will have a universal acceptance of unmanned warships being there. In terms of providing a guiding definition to the unmanned warships which are there, it is US which has come out with its definition since 2017, and it is kept on refining it. And in the latest 2022 US Naval Commander's Handbook also, they have accepted the fact that the present definition of warship accepts unmanned vessels as a warships. So that is where US is leading. No, neither India nor UK has a stated position on the fact. So that is one thing which we need to look into it. Second issue is with regard to unmanned commercial vessels which are there. So IMO had started up with a regulatory scoping exercise which had concluded last year June, I guess, and they had come out with 4 different degrees of commercial vessels. They've named unmanned vessels in commercial sector as MAS, that is maritime autonomous surface ships, and they've not dealt with the underwater vessels which is there. So under that domain, they have divided the future and the present surface ships into 4 categories. Degrees. Degree 1, 2, 3, 4. The first degree of vessels are presently in force, and they are being used by all the commercial shipping companies which have automated processes on board, something like autopilot or something, and you have a crew on board to regulate it. The second degree of MAS which is there is it looks into remotely operated and manned by a crew. So there is a crew on board which can, in case of an emergency or some malfunction, they are there to operate the vessel, and it can be operated from on board the ship also and remotely also. The third kind of vessel is totally remotely operated and no crew on board. So in that kind of a vessel, there will be no crew on board and it will be remotely operated. And the fourth degree of vessels MAS which is there is that we are looking into in the future in 2050 is autonomously deployed vessel which will not have crew, it will not be remotely operated, it will operate on its own. Although we are looking at 2050, however, countries have already completed trials till 2021, wherein vessels have undertaken port-to-port transfers of vessels on an autonomous basis. That is degree 4. But implementation of the same in commercial shipping is still being deliberated, and IMO is yet to come out with the regulatory provisions which have to be amended so that they are regulated in case of future incident. Coming down to the second question, and one more thing which was there which I liked about UK was they did a exercise called Unmanned Warrior Exercise in 2016, and it had operated all drone based operations in the maritime exercise. In terms of the fishing moratorium that ma'am you had asked for, all these states are right now having a fishing moratorium which is domestically applicable. However, there is a recent practice by China wherein post 2020 they have started implementing voluntary fishing moratoriums beyond their seas, and it is mostly in Atlantic region, Pacific region, and now very recently in 2022 they have done it in Indian Ocean region also. So this is a new practice which needs to be evaluated. I don't personally think there is any illegal thing to be being done in that. However, the similar practice has been undertaken in the South China Sea region prior their ships or implementing forces coming over there and showing enlarged presence in that area. So if they are doing it in this region also and in Atlantic and Pacific region also, they have shown an increased presence post promulgation of these kind of voluntary fishing moratoriums. So this is a new practice which has to be watched out for in future. The third query with regard to role of naval forces. In terms of naval forces, the Navy as such has four roles: military, diplomatic, the constabulary and benign role. And constabulary role is a very major facet of naval role. Post 1977, we had another naval force coming into being, that is Coast Guard. And they are majorly into maritime law enforcement basically within the territorial seas of India and now to a certain extent continental shelf and contiguous zone. So I think the naval forces have a very large role to play in that, and post this ABNJ thing coming into being, which is just recently in passed under UNCLOS, there is going to be an enlarged role for both Navy and Coast Guard for all the countries or equivalent maritime forces in the high seas also, wherein implementation measures would be undertaken. In this regard, this fishing moratorium which is there, under the HSBI scheme, High Seas Boarding and Inspection scheme, a lot of naval forces are doing the implementation on board vessels of other countries. India is right now not a contracting party to COFA, so we are not doing that. But that is under consideration, and as and when it happens, we will have this kind of inspection and boarding exercises being done by us also now.
Thank you. A quick follow-up question. So, as you have mentioned, the UN clause establishes certain fundamental norms in the maritime domain. So, and there are like different issues related to UN clause being interpreted differently by various countries, especially if you're looking at the India and UK. How do we can make sure that the two countries could collaborate to ensure a friendly, healthy ocean for all?
In terms of interpretation of UNCLOS from a military point of view, I would say any country which is operating in Indian Ocean region needs to be aware of the geopolitical issues by virtue of which the different interpretation which has been incorporated by India and India's maritime neighbors also. It is not India alone which has a different interpretation of UNCLOS on certain issues. I'll just dwell upon it. So all the maritime neighbors of India also have a particular point of view which is similar to India's point of view, talking about entry of vessels into territorial seas. So in terms of majority of countries all across the globe, they have an interpretation wherein they say that there is no embargo under the UNCLOS for them to enter without prior notification or prior permission. However, India and India's maritime neighbors, out of 7 of them, 6 of us require prior permission or prior notice, which is not agreed upon by the majority of nations across the world, and there are instances wherein it has led to diplomatic issues. Second issue is with regard to security scenarios. India and India's maritime neighbors, again, majority of them, 6 of us, we call for extension of security security laws beyond territorial sea up to contiguous zone. However, majority of nations across the world say no, we don't agree to it. Coming down to another major issue, which is maritime exercises. India and India's maritime neighbors, again, 5 of them, if I'm not wrong, including India, we require prior permission or prior notice depending upon the nation that we are talking about. So before anybody does any military exercise or maneuver in their EEZ or continental shelf, they require prior permission or prior notice. So I'm not talking about UK or any other country. Any country which is operating in Indian Ocean region, they have to be aware of the sensitivities and the legal interpretations, and then only a friendly bridge can be formed. That is my take on it, ma'am.
Thank you. Professor Attri, as we quickly will be going to the Q&A session soon. So, we have been discussing about the geopolitical issues and the geo-economic significance of Indo-Pacific extensively all these days. So, how do the geopolitics and geo-economics in the region have an impact on the blue economic goals in the region?
So let me first basically make the things clear that with regard to the blue economy, what constitutes blue economy, different countries have different viewpoint. So there is you see, contradictions or you see basically disagreement about the universal definition of blue economy. But as I mentioned earlier, the more and more countries are agreeing that the blue economy is increasing level of economic activity in the ocean domain without damaging the productivity of the ocean or keeping the ocean in healthy state. Then you see, regarding the sectors, you see some countries have 20 sectors included in it, some have 31, and in IORA we identify 8 sectors along with fisheries. That is you see, deep sea mining is also there, tourism is also there, shipping is also there, marine knowledge is also there. So it depends, and it also depends on the measurement of the blue economy, because the more the sector you have, the more will be the contribution, and that is measurement issue I'm not bringing because it is highly technical issue. So this is, having said this, basically, now what is happening, you see, as a thinker in blue economy, the strategic issues are very important. And then let me bring out the fact, because ocean is deep, you see, deep down, you see, more than 11,000 meters. And it is a different universe. And whatever technology we have at present, whether it is unmanned, you see drones or everything, because we are talking about digging up this polymetallic modules and all that, they can go up to, some go up to 3,000 meters or 4,000 meters. Beyond that, they cannot go. And it is also recorded on the science that till now we have only explored 5% of the ocean surface. 95% of the ocean surface still remains to be explored. It may take 100 years, more than 100 years, or if you are technology optimistic, may take 50 years. But what is important about the international, the deep sea bed mining, that we have to make the proper environment assessment, you see. What damage we are making to the environment when we are digging the polymetallic modules. And India basically has got that project long back, 75,000 square kilometer. So these are very serious issues, and some of the NGOs are opposing it, and it has a effect with the environment and the climate change. And the nexus between ocean and climate change is being termed as what we call new blue economy. Now coming to the, you see, geopolitical and geoeconomic, you see, basically it is politics which always basically blur the good economics, you see. So here basically the answer lies in collaboration and cooperation. I am nobody to comment about the strategic priorities of each nation. They have their own domain, you see, they are free to have that. But if you want making blue economy people-oriented, or making blue economy as a new paradigm of inclusive growth, or as a new paradigm of sustainable development, or whether you want to fill up the UN resolution by 2030 that no one is left behind. So with all these things, for which you see all 193 countries agreed in December 2015, and we are working towards that. So in that, basically, I think we need to create optimum balance, you see, optimization. As an economist, I would suggest, we need to optimize, and this is clear, and everybody understands that blue economy, or sustainable blue economy, or the ocean economy, or the green blue economy, and here basically one reference I want to take, blue economy basically now also depend upon green economy, and the pioneer in green economy is UK economy. So in that context also, India can learn from UK, and this dialogue is very important. So in that context, basically what is required, that we need to have the proper understanding of each other's interest, you see. Having worked 6 years in the intergovernmental organization, I know that saying something as a result of academic research or something, you see, what you want is different. And when it comes to the negotiating table, the things are different. But still, I'm very much optimistic. There is a great scope. And I just plead to all the audience that Indo-Pacific, let me make a comment. Basically, there is a momentum in Indo-Pacific economic framework. The first ministerial happened on 8th and 9th of September in Los Angeles, where the ministers for all the 14 countries were present. India was also there. Then they decided that let us negotiate. And the negotiations are taking place. And the first meeting of the negotiator was held in December 10 to December 15 in Brisbane in Australia. Then in February, when India has taken over the chair of G20, the second special negotiation meeting was held in India also. And the third negotiation meeting basically is concluding today in Jakarta, started from 19th March to 23rd of March. And this is the timeline that during the year 2023, all the 14 countries basically will be agreeing, will be negotiating, and this Indo-Pacific economic framework may come into existence. To my surprise, basically, all the developments, they are very, very fast. And then you see what will be happening, you see. Whether it is a competitive of China or whether it is not competitive of China, basically what the Indo-Pacific Initiative Government of India says, that let us create the free and open ocean, and that should be rule-based on UNCLOS. Here UNCLOS basically has more than 365 articles. I try to study, but I cannot capture all. And then basically, when you talk about UNCLOS, there is the right of the landlocked countries also, 53 landlocked countries, which do not have the access to the ocean. It is the duty of the ocean state to give them access. So these are very, very, very serious issues. But what is required for the optimum policy at a national level, even at international level, what we need that we should involve first all the stakeholders. The Navy people are there, the lawyers are there, economists, basically the government people are there, you see, private sector is also there. And basically, I am very much skeptical about the financing part, you see. Till now, despite our agreement on the climate change of providing $100 billion fund by 2020, the advanced country has not been able to do that. The financial requirement of the ocean economy, according to the UN estimate, is around $175 billion per year. And till 2015 to 2023, only 1% of the required investment has come for the Sustainable Development Goal 14, life below Earth. So what is the future for the ocean economy? So these are the serious things, you see. The funds are there. One person was saying that, no, Professor Attri, there are a lot of funds. I know. There are billions of dollars, trillions of dollars. And a few of them basically know that there is a pro-blue fund which was created by the World Bank, and where there are the donor countries. Australia is there, Germany is there, UK is there, Scandinavian countries are there, and the fund is basically more than 5 billion. But there are certain rules and regulations. So how to use those funds basically, that is an issue. Then there is an issue of small and medium enterprises. By definition, blue economy is innovative. I come to Professor Pradhan, he is right. So our engineers, our scientists, they have a great scope in creating a unicorn. But for that, government should be supportive of that, you see. Funding should be available. So blue economy is essentially a economy which focus on medium and small scale industries. As I mentioned, the localization, strengthening the local community, strengthening the community which is there in the coastal area. And then basically there is the linkage. And what is the, say, one-time contribution of the ocean economy to the land economy. That is that now we are very particular about the sustainability not in the ocean but also on land, because if you know the pollution comes from river, 80% of the ocean is polluted by the rivers, which is coming from the land. So the sustainability is the big issue, and we should try to create blue thinking, sustainability and healthy ocean, and then we should also leave enough resources for the future generation. This is what the environment economics is. This is what basically the Burden Commission said in 1987. So I was reading her comment that she talked about 20 years back, and now the things are cropping up. So there is basically what I feel that each paradigm shift can take in economics, we say 20 years. So what has been discussed there in February in United Nations, it will reach to you after 4 or 5 years. So basically this is an era of technological change, and essentially technological change is making blue economy more vibrant, and it is because of the blue economy that we will be taking the help of the ocean economy in making our planet prosperous. So these are the issues, and what will be the size of the blue economy in 2030, whether it will be 3.5 trillion US dollar from the 1.5 trillion in 2016, or it will be more than that. So these are the issues of estimation. I think I should stop here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Due to time constraints, now we have to move to the question and answer session. So kindly make your questions short, and please make sure, please tell whom the question is addressed. So shall we take one question at a time, or like a group of questions? What do you prefer?
You are the chairperson.
Okay. Okay, I think we can take one question at a time and tailor the answers accordingly. Yeah.
Hello, sir. Myself, Rajesh. I am a faculty from Ship Technology Department, CUSAT, Cochin University. Sir, you mentioned about blue economy and also it's related to green economy. But my question is that when we search the internet, we can see that by 2050 there will be more plastic in ocean than the fish. Also now 90% of sea salt contains microplastics. So shall we focus about how to reduce the plastic in ocean and other water bodies also? Because that's also much more important rather than focusing on how to harvest the fish effectively. Because plastics is creating such a great problem nowadays. The question is open to the world people.
Can I respond? Thank you. It's a wonderful question and very, very needed question also. I think these days technology has helped us. You go to Tanzania, the ladies and the garbage collectors, they ask, give me your plastic. What do? It's been recycled. Adidas is making already t-shirts and shoes and shoelace, and number of such kind of products are already emerging out of it. Some time ago, I was listening casually in the television to Prime Minister Modi, and he says the future highways of the country shall be plastic dust. That's where I think when we are looking at blue economy, essentially we're looking about a development paradigm which is people-centric. You, me, we are the first, the narratives, the epicenter of the discourse. Second is the planet, and third is ocean and other things, profit or whatever. And that's where blue economy and all of that helping us with adequate technology or the necessity to invest in technology so that we can create better conditions out of the West. And that's where blue economy essentially moves around the idea of circularity of the economy. That what you generate as a West, it has to be the feed for the next energy segment. That's why circularity in the blue economy and sustainability, these are all critical access points of the blue economy phenomena. So that's where I think future, we should be able to handle through technology in coming times. Thank you.
So adding to this, basically, the World Bank is very particular about the clean and healthy ocean. And the plastic, basically, which is a very serious issue, and Basically, you are right, but whatever is being done at UN level and at different countries level, so there is a possibility that healthy ocean, we are investing in that, but basically the virus and the system, COVID-19 and all that, that basically also is related with that whatever goes to the stomach of the fish and whatever seafood we eat, so there are very tiny particles of plastic and all that, and plastic basically now as Dr. Pradhan mentioned, so they are trying to recirculate it. Circular economy concept is there, and China and other countries, they are also talking about the circular economy. Nothing is waste in nature. But beyond that, what is important for the younger generation, that is try to focus on nature positive solutions. Your solutions should support the nature, should be sportive of nature, nature positive. This is what we talk about zero net, emission-free planet, and countries are, you see, basically committing, and you see this Middle East country and India is also committed. Our Prime Minister said by 2070, some will become fulfilling it by 2060. So that basically the movement is there. But what requires, and this is basically my real feeling, that we are lacking on implementation. Implementation is the issue. And for that, basically, I may share with you that long back, I think 2 years back, I keep track on what Guntar Pali says. He created an idea of what we say that blue city, blue smart city. But what is important, smart is not that important. It is the fashion of the day. The cities should be livable with all facilities, you see. Water and sanitation, clean water, sanitation, better roads, you see, pollution-free air. So all those things basically should be, and there is also a clause, as I mentioned earlier, that each country is free to have some leverage in defining blue economy, and it should be in accordance with the conditions of the soil. What India requires with the local conditions. So that need to be focused. You need not to copy 100% what is said at international level. Conditions are different. And it should be in accordance with the comparative or competitive advantage, which is very important. So all those things basically, they need to be taken into account. And I think probably we can make a resilient planet, we can make a sustainable planet.
We'll go to Father Churchill.
Again, I repeat my name, Father Churchill, General Secretary for South Asian Fishermen Fraternity. I have 3 questions to raise it. One is, in the land, each country divides the land, what is available between each other. There is no common land which is used by all other countries between two countries. But in ocean, when there is two countries, coastal states, in between there is ocean, but it is given as a international water and permitted to used by other countries which is not near to this ocean. Why? Injustice in the sea and another justice in the land. And second question, and Dr. Attri told, England is reaching near to its goal for blue economy. Why India is not able to achieve that? What is the perspective differs in executing the goal of blue economy? Third one, Dr. Pradhan clearly told the blue economy is innovation for the traditional fisherman. Okay. So far, the innovation is given for a corporate or commercial alone, abandoning the fisherman. If the fishermen are abandoned, because already we discussed the blue economy is smart port. So there is no importance for the fisheries harbor or the traditional fishermen, those are doing traditional fishing in the mechanized boat, motorized boat, or non-mechanized boat. If the blue economy is not bothering these fishermen who earns their livelihood from the sea, what will it really give the development to our state?
Okay, let me give a slightly different response to this. Earlier or as of today, I think the global narratives have been more profit-centric, either geopolitical profit or geo-economic profit or something or the other. And that's what, the last, it's all G7. G7 has evolved into G20 today. We have incorporated more countries, more people from many parts of the world. It is more beginning to become people-centric. We have to go a long distance to refine the dialogue, make it far more people-centric. A lot of definitions are still pending. And that's where the knowledge economy, countries like India, we are poor. Today we are efficient, we have arrived in the international space, we are also demanding certain respect, privilege, and also we are buying oil from Russia, selling it to Europe when the sanctions are on. So we have arrived. So the global debates, narratives are changing, and correspondingly the definitions, as of today it is profit-centric, but it has to eventually become people-centric, where all of us we have to live, and that's where civil society, that's where Gunter Pauli also, he is more into the people-centric ideas where sustainability, local women, the villagers, all of that. He is not talking about a government-driven thing, but that people have to carry it. Now it is the contractors, the governments, those kind of definitions are happening. Thank you.
Well, let me add something to this in the sense that I just try to write something about financing the blue economy and what are the instruments and all that. And one fact which I just want to bring to your kind notice, I can take you back to 2012 United Nations Conference on Sustainable Development, where the small island developing countries, SIDS, gathered in the conference, raised a question. The conference was basically on the green economy and all that. They said that you are talking about the green economy and all that, but what about the ocean? Because we are surrounded by ocean. Oceans are important, and it is in that meeting that ocean basically came to the limelight. So the point here is, and I should also make it clear to you, it is not a question of being large or small country. I can give the example of Seychelles, who made innovative financing. So what is important that you need to make innovative financing, but if you talk about the profit theories in economics, there are 7 theories of profit, and the private sector is not coming to invest in the ocean economy. I know the details, I won't share it, but basically what is required, why the investment is not coming? Because there is lot of uncertainty, risk is there, you see. And as I already shared data with you, but let me share with you that with regard to the Sustainable Development Goal, majority of the countries in the world, they are stagnant. They are not moving towards achieving the Sustainable Development Goal. There are few indicators. If you go into the report, United Nations report on Sustainable Development Goal, June 2022, it gives you all the data regarding all the 193 countries. And no miracle can happen, you see. But the focus is on collaboration and cooperation. I can say here on this dais, and for future, you say, let us be prepared what next after 2030 when the Sustainable Development Goal will not be fulfilled by any of the country, something new will come. So what is that? What will be that where the resources will be there? Although I can give you the estimates that if you come to the Asian countries and the sustainability development goal can be achieved by the year 2065. If you come to IORA, there is a possibility of achieving the development sustainable goal by 2070 or even beyond. if you come to the EU, European Union, the Sustainable Development Goal might be achieved by 2040. But world is not static. What will be the face of IORA or what will be the face of G20 in 2040? Yet to be seen. So the whole dynamics will change. But the basic principles, what is the contribution I told you, and that I stick and remind you again and again, that the central point of the blue economy is sustainability. You should talk about sustainable consumption, sustainable production, sustainable trade, sustainable tourism. Everything should be sustainable, the thing which you can sustain in future. You take the case of China, having the double-digit growth rate, more than 10%. How long? So China may be facing problems because environmental problems are there in future. So all those things, but the basic principles, they should be captured, and they should be, as I say, and as the heart of the blue economy is people-centric, localization, innovation, technology-oriented. But there is a divide, there is a gap, technological gap. Who dominate the technology? Who is making huge investment in artificial intelligence? Probably China and US and other countries. What is the research and development expenditure of India? It has come down, not even 1% of the GDP. What you are spending on education and health all over the world. I can give you example of Indonesia, Malaysia, all countries. By and large, Scandinavian countries and few Western European countries, generally the trend is the expenditure on health and education is declining as a percentage of GDP. So what can happen, you see? How you can achieve all those things? So that is basically, you need to frame a long-term policy, long-term projections, and you should be very sincere. What are the major drivers? I won't go into the detail of that. There are certain drivers. But we have not talked about spatial marine planning, you see. Marine spatial planning, MSP. MSP is the vehicle of implementing the blue economy. Nobody talks about marine spatial planning. And whatever you talk, you integrate with the previous projects. So all these things are very thought-provoking, and the younger generation should look into that. I can also tell you that there was a debate in Brazil, and we don't know what will be the future of the profession after, say, 20 years. Whether the students or the younger will be willing to go deep in the ocean and work there. So these are the issues which are associated with the blue economy. Thank you.
We'll take 2-3 questions together so that we have concluded in another 5 minutes.
Good evening. I am very thankful to very highly enlightened and informative talk by Professor Attri, and all the compliments. And Professor Attri has made a lot of recommendations to the world bodies, Indian government, ASEAN countries on blue economy and ocean-related matters. If I quote the words of Professor Attri from this talk, the blue economy should be people-centric, local, technology-oriented with a market network. And in this respect, Dr. Pradhan has also highlighted countries like Japan or even small countries like Chile, they have made wonderful achievement in the field of economy. So my humble submission or my point to Professor Attri is that why can't you make a proposal to our government to adopt a national policy on blue economy covering point number 1, the micro level geographic, demographic situation. For example, India has a coastline of 7,561 kilometers. So the situation in the Gujarat coast or the situation in the Malabar coast or Konkan coast is entirely different. There will be land problems, demographic problems, then development of infrastructure problems, all these things is there. We cannot make a comparison with the UK or Japan or other countries. So while formulating a national policy, Professor Attri, using your vast experience and expertise in this field, why can't you make a proposal to our government considering all these aspects, demographic, micro-level changes, variations, then it should be people-oriented, localized, the technology-oriented, it is highly advantageous. That is number one. My second question is to Commander Rathore. There is a general criticism among the Committee of Nations that UNCLOS, though ratified by United States and other countries, is not properly used to protect the maritime interests or maritime security of different countries. For a specific example, the freedom of navigation. The article under UNCLOS, the freedom of navigation is there. In the context of India, recently, violating the provisions of the freedom of navigation or misquoting the provisions of the freedom of navigation, some ships has trespassed into this exclusive economic zone about 130 nautical miles away from Lakshadweep. And the Indian government has formally protested. So my question is that, how can the laws like UNCLOS should be made more country-oriented, protecting the interest of all the nations, irrespective whether it is UK, US, or the Committee of Nations in the Europe?
With regard to FONOPS operation, I would like to bring out that having studied the US FONOP operation since they started it somewhere around 1988 and since 78, but the reports are available since 1988 onwards in the open forum. And having seen the graph of activities that US has been doing, initially they were challenging the maritime coastal states having claims with regard to territorial waters beyond 12 nautical miles. So then people started reducing their territorial waters from whatever amount they were claiming till 12 nautical mile in accordance with UNCLOS. Then later on they had different issues with, basically they had a lot of issues with a lot of maritime countries, and they have been challenging it all over the world. Coming down to India and India's interpretation, as I've earlier also brought out, the interpretation of India is not only India's interpretation, and India is not the only exception. If you do a study with regard to the IOR region, India and its maritime neighbors with regard to this specific query with regard to military maneuvers and exercises, there are 6 countries, including India and its maritime neighbors, who have a declaration under the UNCLOS while ratifying it, stating that their understanding says that any country which is doing military maneuvers or exercises in EEZ and continental shelf needs to take prior permission from the coastal state. Some have changed it to prior intimation. That is their understanding. So again, coming down to the basics, Article 310 provides for making of declaration or statements, and UNCLOS, when it was made as a whole package. You had to accept the whole thing or you didn't accept it, and that is what most of the nations did. And the only exit clause or exemption clause which provided nations with a way of lodging their formal protest or formal digression from the UNCLOS with regard to any of the issues was Article 310, which India and everybody accepted. Now, in case of any country, including US or any other country which is digressing from the point of view of India, I would say the only way forward right now in a civilized world right now is to lodge diplomatic protest, and which was done. And however, India has stood still. However, coming back to US has changed its stance from 1987 or 98 with regard to marine scientific research and EEZ. Initially, when the US presidential declaration said that in case any country wants to carry out marine scientific research, that is to civilian vessels, it need not take permission from the coastal state. That was the interpretation that US had. However, due to geopolitical issues and certain nations' MSR activities within the US EEZ, now they've changed their interpretation. Now they've said no. Although we agreed that there is no embargo with regard to that, however, now any state which is doing any MSR in our waters or in any of the waters, they need to take permission from the coastal state. The country in question is China. They have been doing a lot of MSR activities in the US EEZ. So they have changed their position. We have not. We have stuck to our stand. So we will keep sticking to it, and people will have to adjust themselves. That is all I can say, sir.
Thank you, Rathore.
Quick, I think given the opportunity, countries actually have been little selfish. The Americans, if at all you ask them, they would like to kill ISA, International Seabed Authority. Because the International Seabed Authority is the contract, licensing body for sea mining. And Americans, how dare any institution in the world can allow Americans to, or give license to the Americans? They have the free license. That's the problem. And UNCLOS, they have not ratified it. But the Lockheed company, piggy rights on a British company, which has ratified the UNCLOS, and the Americans are doing what they want to do. So institutions or no institution, typical case study, one of the case study, 2001 or 2002, one of the American mother vessel in the high seas, it was simply it was anchored, and then it was trying to closer to the Canadian littoral waters. They introduced a very high pitch music in the vessel, and it attracted the Canadian littoral waters. Fish cats were getting dragged to the American mother vessel, and the Americans are happily saying, fish is coming and jumping to us, on us. What can we do? And it was referred, the case was referred to WTO. It is unethical. And time has come where all of us, we have to take a step forward, take a gracious statesmanship way, so that all of us, we can create convergence for our own survival altogether. Now all the countries are awake. Thank you.
Thank you. Due to time constraints, we had to wind up the session right now. Thank you, Professor Attri, Dr. Pradhan, and Commander Rathore. It was a quite interesting and engaging discussion. So I think as a key takeaway of this session, we can say that blue economy is not a strategic priority alone, but an economic goal that India and UK will be pushing forward. And I think the key strategy will be here, the clean economy plus knowledge economy plus circular economy plus being people-centric. So with that, I would like to conclude this session. Thank you all. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Anisree. So the discussion was excellent. The panelists rightly pointed out the role of IORA. UK being a dialogue partner can be a right platform in advancing blue economy, along with other mini-lateral and multilateral platforms. So thank you once again, all the panelists and Anisree. So thus we come to the end of the third session. Thank you all.